Kia ora, talofa namaste, haere mai, and welcome to the Niche Cast. We're from the niche-case.com, where we go deep into Aotearoa sporting matters as an example of how hardcore we are about New Zealand sport. We got to start with one of the strangest cricketing experiences I've ever seen, and I think I've watched maybe 2% of international cricketing matches, maybe 1%, maybe less than that. But in my illustrious cricket watching past and present and future, I've never seen what happened to the poor bloke Imam Al Haq with the throw from Reece Mariu. And then in the same game, we had the blackout just as the ball was being bowled, which is behind you on the video. How'd you feel watching those two things? Is there anything else that strange that happened in that game? It's just a fun old Kiwi cricket situation.
Yeah, weird way to cap off the home season, wasn't it? I didn't see the throw one live. I had to go back and find the replay when someone was talking about that, and I had to check wait, what? Oh, the ball went under his helmet? What are you trying to say? What are you trying to tell me? And found the replay, just scroll back on the feed. Yeah, the ball went under his helmet. I've never seen that before. But that felt like a freak incident where you can sort of imagine how that happens. Like you don't expect to ever see that again, but you can sort of yeah, he was running in one direction, the ball, whatever. Like you can sort of see how that happened. For the lights to go up while a batter's right about to face as the bowler hits his delivery stride is something else entirely, because that's not just a freak incident that you can't really account for. That's like the stuff of cricket nightmares. That's like a recurring dream that you would have as a batter, is the lights go out and you can't see anything as the ball's about to be hurtled towards you at 140 k's an hour. And it was too late for Jacob Duffy to pull out as well. He was in his stride and the lights just cut out at that moment. And then obviously the lights are out, so they go through a bunch of different replays. But there's one replay where the camera was sort of like at ground level, so you could see just the shadows against the advertised hoardings, and you do actually see the little circle, little dark circle of the ball bouncing and fizzing past outside off stump, thankfully, because if that was a bouncer and you didn't know where it was coming from, you'd freak out. And I think the point was made as well, the instinct for the batter was to duck towards leg side, but there were so many wides bowled in this series that might not have been safe either. So that was insane. I've never seen anything like those two incidents, but it's the lights going out incident in particular that just got me thinking, like, how do you sleep at night after one of those ones? That was crazy.
I mean, any player who played in the 2019 World Cup final, like they're well versed in dealing with cricketing trauma and just the
Yeah.
mayhem that a game of cricket can offer. And that's something that does stand out as just a weird, like, does seem like these are Kiwi cricket things. Like, respect to oh, Huck, like, I hope he's okay. There was also a bit of a crowd situation with one of the Pakistani players. So there are some situations you don't want to make light of with the lights going out. But and something else I did think of, like, this is not like a weird Kiwi cricket situation. Maybe it's just more like something I admired about New Zealand cricket, and especially the glorious country of Aotearoa, the best country in the world, where earlier in this tour there was the early game, like Ramadan break. So it's like the game's just getting started, and then the sun goes down, so the Pakistani players can have a bit of kai, a little bit of a drink, refuel. And I was just like, every time that happened, I was just like, this is beautiful, because you got different cultures coming together, but also you've got just everyone taking a break, a little breather for sunset. So it's like cool with the cultures, the religions, and this is something that deserves to be celebrated, because many countries, many people, they're not fond of other countries. They're not fond of other races. They're not fond of other religions. They always just think they're the best. Their culture's the best. Their religion's the best. And like, no, we're all humans. We're all just here to welcome each other and be nice to each other. So I found it warm and fuzzy. Like, I felt good watching the players take a break to break their fast, have a bit of breakfast at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, because that is breaking your fast, breakfast. So I felt good about that. But it was just like, hey, let's just take a moment to enjoy the sunset as well. Like it's just a beautiful time to be here. And it's something along those lines. I was looking at the Blackcaps post-series photo, the champions of the Pakistan series. We got old Reece Mariu. And with respect to the other players, I don't know about their Māori heritage. But Reece Mariu, he's represented like Aotearoa Māori in cricket and stuff like that. So we got a Māori in the team. We got Muhammad Abbas, born in Pakistan, Pakistani heritage. We got Adi Ashok. He was in the squad, so he was in the photo. Another player who was born in India with Indian heritage. We didn't get a Pakistani heritage and Indian heritage playing in the same Blackcaps team yet because Ashok didn't play. But along with Reece Mariu, we all got them in the same photo together. So I thought that was just a beautiful moment. But do you, swing back to my initial point, do you have any other like Kiwi cricket things where, especially recently, it's just like, these are crazy things. Like another thing that pops to mind, Laturu Taylor taking a wicket with his final delivery. Anything else that pops top of mind for you?
Yeah, well, like the aforementioned 2019 World Cup in a bad way was was all of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, like Glenn Phillips's catching seems like something that would fit into that. Not just Glenn Phillips either. Like, there's quite a few of them taking big catch. Michael Bracewell throughout the series was taken just like, as we've said before, his hands the size of bloody like he's got those like Mickey Mouse hand things going in a good way. Mickey Mouse has the massive big gloves on his hands. It's sort of that thing where he's just like scooping up these little peanuts out of the air, and he's taken great catches. The Blackcaps in general seem to just be except for one guy. I thought Tim Seifert's catching was pretty average throughout the series, fielding in general, but we'll cut him slack because he's a wicketkeeper being asked to work in the outfield and in the infield, all around the place. And not everyone can be Brendan McCullum when you make that transition. The fact is he's just another one of these multi-skilled players who's able to get into the team as a batter, even though he's traditionally known as a wicketkeeper batter, and still do a job, at least in the outfield without the gloves. Yeah, I don't know. There's always plenty of good stuff going on with those. It's Will O'Rourke bowling like heat off a short of a good length feels like something that could fall into that category as well. It's lots of good stuff. For every Kiwi summer, there's always full of a few of them.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big difference between catching and the lights going out. These are very different things. But I don't expect you to just remember something crazy that happened off the top of your head. The Blackcaps, they were like pretty ruthless. I mean, Will O'Rourke steaming in, hitting blokes every which way. There were a couple of different, I think at least 3 Pakistani batters got hit in the head by a cricket ball, whether it was while they were batting or while they were running between the wickets. Like there were a lot of those situations happening as well.
Concussion subs in consecutive games, wasn't it, for Pakistan?
Yeah, because old Harry Ralph had a bit of he got hit in the noggin. So the Blackcaps, the Blackcaps bullies, like that's what they're doing out here, hurting blokes. But again, respect. Hopefully, all the Pakistani players have left Aotearoa in good spirits and good health. And yeah, we're doing a podcast, so let's keep the intro going. The big yarns on the website. Check us out, thenews-case.com. Domestic footy review every Monday. That's live. There'll be the Flying Kiwis, a wrap looking at the international footballing landscape featuring the Kiwis. We might explore this in a jiffy, but fresh out of the oven, let's go with Ollie Kalotti, tap-in hat-trick. We had Callum McCow whipping in a nice cross. So there's good stuff happening in the Flying Kiwis department. Today I just did a Kiwi-NRL spotlight on Moses Leo making his debut for the Storm. Tomorrow I will do a Kiwi-NRL spotlight on Sean Mullany making his debut for the Gold Coast Titans. anyone keeping count, that's 4 Kiwi NRL debutants within 5 rounds of NRL footy. So we're doing all right here from Aotearoa. And yeah, we're just doing some stuff. So check us out on the niche-case.com. We've also got the newsletter, the nichecase.substack.com, full of Aotearoa sporting notes and nuggets, much of which is forming the podcast discussion. Like, we go super hard on the newsletter ting. So make sure you're signed up, the nichecase.substack.com. There's a free section, and then you can upgrade your free subscription to a paid subscription and access the second half of the newsletter. It's like a little sneaky little back pocket that is, guess what, full of Aotearoa sporting notes and nuggets. The whole newsletter is then copied into Patreon. So big up to everyone on Patreon. We appreciate your support. You can join the Patreon whānau for a couple of dollars a month to support all the Niche Case work, which is slightly more economical in these recession times, because it's just a few dollars a month on Patreon. So you get the bonus podcast every week. You get the full newsletter copied into Patreon as well. And that is a little bit cheaper than the Substack subscription. So whatever works for you, if you're a big fan of the Substack platform, there's all the options available to you there. Otherwise, join the Patreon whānau if you want to, or you can just make a donation through Buy Me a Coffee. And otherwise, you can just be here with us, your eyes and ears, and having a good old time enjoying Aotearoa sport. I haven't got around to doing any Lord of the Rings mindfulness because we've just been grinding away with the Aotearoa sport. And I've had to actually, because it's something I've got to, I haven't even got around to, like, can I like get the transcript from the YouTube to explore my mindfulness? Can I?
You mean the book? The transcript of the audio book? Just the book?
Yeah, well, I don't have the book, like that's the issue.
There's your problem.
So I need to type out. It's just something I've got to work through, but I have got to the point where the hobbits do return to the Shire. And it's just it's a weird way to finish like the journey. I'm still kind of coming to grips with it because it's like they come back to the Shire and everything's messed up. It's like I haven't quite processed that, and I think there's some kernels of mindfulness in that, but I haven't really gotten too deep into that. But you're the one with the mindfulness. What do you got?
Well, you didn't get time to get your Lord of the Rings transcripts, but I did. So after we talked about it a bunch last week, when I finished the book I was reading before, I thought, well, I'm going to have to do it now. I'm going to have to jump back in. And so I got the old, whipped through the first couple hundred pages of Fellowship of the Ring over the weekend. So I've dove in, and I've just got up to the bit where our mate Tom Bombadil's hanging out.
Oh,
so
Bombadil.
Of course I had to go and find a Tom Bombadil quote. I thought, well, that's the only way to do it. But he doesn't really talk normally. Half the things he says is just singing in verse. So it was a little bit difficult. But there was a bit where he described Farmer Maggot, who, despite his name, is quite a wholesome character within the story early on. Just briefly pops up. I don't know what happens to him when they go back to the Shire. Or hopefully Farmer Maggot's all right when the Dark Wizard's hanging out. But this is how Tom Bombadil describes Farmer Maggot, in a way which seems, quite aspirational. A good way to be is to be a bit like Farmer Maggot, who has earth under his old feet, clay on his fingers, wisdom in his bones, and both his eyes are open. So cheers to Mr. Bombadil for that, via Mr. Tolkien.
Shout out to Tolkien, shout out to Bombadil, shout out to Mr. Maggot as well. I seize you, Mr. Maggot. Yeah, that's a good one. Like just very earthy, very grounded in nature and connected. But I'm all about the pipeweed. So I was hoping you'd tap into a little bit of the pipeweed, and I mean, in the Shire, they're the dealers, they're the growers for the realm.
Well, there was like a preface bit in the edition that I got where he puts out a few of these ideas, and one of them was about the pipeweed stuff, which the hobbits claim that they invented. They were the first ones to figure out how to put it in a pipe and light it up. So they're not just the dealers. They're this is their whole art form. They created this thing.
And it was a very strategic decision by Saruman to have a presence in the Shire, because then he's getting all the exports.
Yeah.
So when they go to Isengard and they're kind of living in a hut on the edge of the area, whatever it is, and they've stolen some pipeweed, all of that's come from the Shire because Saruman's got the plug. He's got the plug from the Shire for the pipeweed. So big up. This is the only time I'm going to say it. Big up Saruman. Rightio. A bit of basketball to get the juices are already flowing. We're already warmed up. We've already swung a leg, rolled the arm over. We've had a net. We've done a couple of passes, left foot, right foot, keepy uppy, bit of rondo, a little bit of, in the NRL, they do the shoulders like with each other, bang, bang, bang. That would be funny if you're just watching a game of cricket or watching a game of football, local football, and the dudes are warming up, just doing the rugby league warm up, boom, 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 shoulder to shoulder. That would be good to see. But NBL basketball is rocking and rolling, moving and grooving. My first thing, I've got two things I want to discuss. First thing is I was watching the Wellington Saints, and if you're watching the Wellington Saints, you're watching Hiram Harris, and we are big fans of Hiram Harris. I think he is my favorite basketballer, not in the NBA. So he's my second favorite Kiwi basketballer currently playing. Obviously, big old Steve is number one, numero tahi. But I do love Hiram Harris. Hiram Harris is a legend to me. And another player, or two more players we've talked a lot about already in the NBL season, Carlin Davison for Taranaki and Jackson Ball for Hawke's Bay. So I'm like, what's if I just have a team with Hiram Harris, Carlin Davison, Jackson Ball? I think that's just a really cool little core. So I'm selecting those three players. You've got two selections to round out our starting five. It can be your favorite players, your best players, whatever you want, because to be honest, Hiram Harris, Carlin Davison, Jackson Ball, they're my favorite players. They're the best players. They're everything to me. Who are the two players you select to round out our starting five of Kiwi basketballers currently in the NBL? So that means no Stephen Adams. Right. You can't chuck Stephen Adams in. But I mean, you can if you want to.
No Finn Delaney or Yanni Wetzel or whoever if we wanted to, or Isaac Fortu. So I would say, if you're just trying to get the best team, you'd grab Shayley and Rob Lowe, who Rob Lowe has played a few games for the Tuatara. Shayley seems to be taking a couple of weeks off in between Aussie season and New Zealand season, but he is going to be playing alongside Hiram Harris for Wellington very soon. Don't know how soon, but possibly as soon as the next game. He's got his free agency stuff sorted out now, so I suppose the coast is clear. He's re-signed with Melbourne for 2 years, which will be a funky one because Flynn Cameron's left Melbourne, signed with Adelaide. Not the Breakers, but signed with Adelaide, which is interesting. And Matty Dellavedova has left to sign with Sydney Kings. So the sort of three-pronged guards that they had there, Shayley's the last one standing. But I do think that's quite cool for him when Dellavedova leaves. That makes Ellie a pure point guard for Melbourne United, not just sort of a little bit more of a combo when they're both sharing duties. But Dellavedova's doing most of the ball handling, getting most of the assists. I think that opens up a bigger role for Shea Illy, a little bit more impactful role on both ends because he's already the best defender in the NBL. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, just give me your two players. I will get into.
But I don't. Stuff, I don't want to. It's boring to say Shea Illy and Rob Lowe, right? Like, it's too obvious. So I want to get a little bit more exciting, a little bit more interesting with it. So there's two ways you can go with this. Do you grab a big man, or do you go small and grab a couple of extra shooters? I think Hiram Harris could just play center, and Carlin Davison could just play power forward. I think you could get away with that because they're both bouncy enough. Which leads me towards saying, like, well, then I just want a couple of exciting guards who can, run the floor, shoot from distance, play that pick and roll stuff, pass the ball well, get to the rim and finishing close, all that cool stuff. In which case, I want Dante Russo-Nance, currently playing for Manawatu, averaging 20.7 points per game, 42% from the field, only 31% from threes, but he's getting 4.8 rebounds, 4.2 assists, and crucially as well, 3.0 steals. Dante Russo-Nance, who is moving up from development role with Perth Wildcats this season to he should be on a full roster spot, so we're expecting much bigger minutes for him in the upcoming Aussie season, already having a massive role for Manawatu and the Kiwi stuff. I want him there. And then I want an Isaac brother, but I'm not going to go Kaya Isaac. I'm going to go Tama Isaac, younger brother, who is what, like 18, 19, I think 19 years old. He's only a year or two older than Jackson Ball. He's averaging 13 points per game for Canterbury, but that's a Canterbury team with a lot of good options, so he's not necessarily out there to be a top scorer or nothing, but he's shooting 56% overall and 48% from his three-pointers. Also 4 rebounds, 4.8 assists, 1.2 steals. He's going pretty handy too. So I'm going with those two. But if you did want to mix it up with a big man instead of maybe Tama Isaac, I'll just sneakily chuck out the name Jack Andrew as well, playing for Taranaki. He's had a pretty nice season too. He's one of the leading rebounders across the competition, not quite as high up there as Hiram Harris is. I think Hiram Harris is averaging double digits for rebounds, but Jack Andrews up there as well, and he's finishing quite nicely, 67% field goal shooting, 2.7 blocks as well, so he brings you a bit of rim protection as well. So Jack Andrew is he's the backup if you decide the small ball stuff isn't working.
We started bringing up stats, which just instantly pissed me off. Like, there's no stats required, but
well, you gotta throw up some evidence. You know?
this is purely vibe. And you also pissed me off by going small. But this is just like
that's why I gave you the alternative. You know,
it's just my mindfulness. I need to be open to other people's ideas and so on. You know, like stuff like that. Because when I initially wrote, I was like, Harris, Davison, Ball, they're my 3 small players. That's just how I instantly viewed it. So I was like, the way I was setting it up in my mind was like, okay, Nick can select 2 big players. But the point is that Harris, Davison, and Ball, they can be 3 big players, they can be 3 small players. They can handle the ball, they can play center. Like Hiram Harris can be your point guard, he can be a small ball center, to your point.
Yeah, he actually could. You could go either way with that. You pick 2 smalls, 2 bigs, or 1 of each. You know, you got a lot of options there.
But I do think the Rob Lowe Shea Illy combo is the best of both worlds.
Mm.
But as we go into the fact that Canterbury are 4-1, they're the only team with 1 loss, but they've played 1 less game than a lot of the teams, aside from the Nelson Giants, who are 0-5. Then you go Indian Panthers, big up the Panthers. Not like if the Warriors are the Pam's Panthers, then the Indian Panthers are. I mean, they're not even home brand, you know. They're just not even in the supermarket, to be honest, the Indian Panthers. But shout out to the Indian Panthers because they are nothing like the Penrith Panthers. And to be honest, they're not even like the Pam's Panthers or Warriors of Mount Smart Stadium. Canterbury Rams are 4-1. Then you've got Wellington, Tauranga, Taranaki, Hawke's Bay, Franklin, who are all 4-2. So let's just keep the spotlight on Canterbury Rams. I mean, you selected Kaya Isaac in our little imaginary team? Tamatoa
Isaac.
Well, apparently he's averaging 18.6 points per game, according to the NBL page. So your
Kaya could be rapid league. I'm not sure.
Well, Kaya Isaac's averaging 13.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I wrote the wrong 13.
But
that's possible.
But if we're talking legends of Kiwi basketball, if we're talking best players, I kind of want this dude on my team. You didn't mention him, neither did I.
I know who you're going to say too, because I thought about him. I just thought, I'll go younger, but, you know, he's up there.
Taylor Britt averaging the most points for Canterbury, averaging the most assists for Canterbury. He deserves a shout out as just one of the best basketball players in New Zealand from New Zealand right now. And right now considers back-to-back NBL championships with Canterbury, along with like guys like Max Starling, your old mates Wally, Walter Brown, who have played in consecutive NBL championships for the Canterbury Rams. Taylor Britt is the point guard, he's the orchestrator, he's the halfback, he's the playmaker for the best team in the NBL of the last two seasons and the best team right now, leading them for average points, leading them for average assists, and he is very good at basketball. So shout out to Taylor Britt because he is doing a fantastic job with the Canterbury Rams. Didn't quite get into our team here, to be honest. It would just probably be better to select them ahead of Kaya Isaac, but also like shout out to the Isaac brothers. They're doing a fantastic job as well. What have you made of Canterbury's hot start to the NBL? And to be honest, just an extension of the Canterbury Rams dynasty. Like if they, here's a thought for you. If they succeed this year once again, then we're in like undisputed dynasty territory. So then we're getting into Wellington Blaze in the Super Smash. Then we're getting into who was it? Auckland City in the football landscape. Then we're getting into Otago Sparks in the HBJ Shield. That's the realms that the Canterbury Rams are existing in as the most dominant basketball franchise team in Aotearoa, trying to do that for the third season in a row.
We're also getting into like Wellington Saints of 5 years ago in this very same league. Like it's not just that they've come along and forged what might be growing into a dynasty themselves. It's in doing so, they kind of toppled another one. I think partly, I mean, that happened right, like that switchover happened right about when they had like the COVID season and stuff. So I think to be fair to Wellington Saints, it's you know, there are other factors at play, and also the Saints are right up there. Saints are going, especially once Shaley turns up. I suspect they're going to be one of the contending teams this season. So it's not like they've gone anywhere. But Canterbury have a different coach this season because Judd Flavel's moved on to be the Tall Blacks coach. So Quinn Clinton stepped up. First time head coach, very young as well for a head coach, but carrying on exactly where his predecessor left off. Like there's no trouble there. They've turned up again and are winning games. They also, I think a sneaky one here is it was last season, wasn't it? When Lockie Olbrich was playing for them. He was the league MVP, young Aussie big man, who's now recently, like just in the past week, before that, he went from the Canterbury Rams, winning a championship there, went to the Illawarra Hawks for the Aussie season, won a championship there. Now is declared in the last few days for the NBA draft, so there's a possibility he might get drafted. He could easily sneak into a second round pick or something there. So while the focus will obviously be on the Australian player and the Australian team he played for, and Canterbury Rams deserve a little bit of credit as well for helping bring him through and giving him big confidence to go out there and do what he did in the particularly in the last couple of games of that championship series. He was very good in games 4 and 5 there, leading the Hawks, not leading, but one of their key players on the way towards the championship. So, and a couple of must-win games as well. So I think there's even that aspect as well for the Canterbury Rams. They've developed a foreign player nicely on top of the fact of what we're seeing, like Taylor Britt just seems to go from strength to strength. He's a little bit older than some of these other guys, but certainly Kaya Isaac, Tama Isaac, Max Darling, Walter Brown, like these younger players who've been around for both of the championship seasons and now also for this third season as they try to do the old three-peat. They're better players every single year playing for this team. So there's a development angle there, certainly. And then there's quite a few very good young players beneath that level as well. Where like I remember you saying there's a game of a week or two ago where they finished it with just a lineup, and it was garbage time minutes, but finished it with a lineup of just a bunch of high school players. Like Tom Isaac was probably one of them. I think he's still around that age. So like incredible pipeline of talent in the region, clearly. Incredible coaching lineage going on there. Great success on the court. They're picking up where they left off last season. The Canterbury Rams have just been superb. And Taylor Britt is the leader of that team. Like I'm sure they'll have I don't know, I can't remember what their import situation is yet. Usually everyone gets an import or two that arrives late and adds a little bit to what they've got. But Taylor Britt is the tone setter. Like he's the inspirational captain out there. And I mean, I would like to see him get back into the Aussie NBL stuff at some point. I think if you're looking at the better performing players in this particular league, he's one of them. He's up there. He did have an extended stint with the Perth Wildcats earlier in his career, where he was a development player there for sort of like 3-4 years or something like that. Didn't quite get the translation into a full-time gig. I would like to see what the Wildcats do, because they have had Dante Russo-Nance, as I said, has stepped up to, like, they actually it was going to happen last year, but they renegotiated his contract to push it down the line a bit. But he will be stepping up into a full roster spot this season. But Ty Webster is off contract, currently playing in France, actually, top division of France. So he's found himself a nice little home in the off season. He might even stay there for next season. Who knows, for the full time. And Hiram Harris is also a free agent who didn't play nearly as much as he should have last season. So there's a couple interesting ones there with that little core. We've had this little core of Perth Wildcats hoarding up good Kiwi players has been diminished a bit lately, but there's free agency in which they might be able to restock the shelves. But I do remember thinking a couple of years ago how the Breakers absolutely should have gone after Hiram Harris when he left. I think it was Adelaide, and he didn't. He went to Perth, spent a couple of seasons there. Well, the Breakers have different, what do you call them, motivations now. So I wonder if that might be one to look out for. They did miss out on Flynn Cameron, who's opted for an Adelaide gig instead, chose a 3-year contract with Adelaide, which frankly, like, if he's leaving Melbourne, it's because he thinks he's ready for a bigger role. If he's signed with Adelaide instead of the Breakers, it's because they must have promised him a bigger role than what the Breakers were willing to, which fair enough. Isaiah Liafa has signed with the Breakers, so they've already brought back one fella from an Australian club after he left with Sydney Kings. And yeah, who knows? Maybe there's a bit of room for Taylor Britt in there. They already have Kaya Isaac and Max Darling, of course, under contract at the Breakers. There's already a Breakers group with this Canterbury Rams team, and Walter Brown as well with Tasmania. I think he's on the same deal as Dante Russo-Nance. So the 3rd year with Tasmania, but the 3rd year stops being a development player and he moves on to the main roster. So I think that's ahead for him this season as well. So yeah, we've seen the sort of like the solid playing core that's been there for all 3 of these seasons for the Rams, developing year on year on year, but also in the case of like Max Darling's moved up from a DP role to a full roster spot in the Aussie NBL as well. Walter Brown's about to do the same thing. Kaya Isaac will be aiming for the same thing. He's still a DP for the Breakers. So yeah, these guys are developing at the Rams, but they're also getting bigger opportunities elsewhere on top of their good work with the Rams, which again reflects amazingly well on the Canterbury Rams.
And they did pick up Tohi Smith-Milner as well.
Yeah,
big
as well.
Man who loves to shoot a 3. So that's a major addition to their back-to-back championship roster, especially when you're replacing someone like Albrook, who you just laid out, highly impressive talent. And Tohi Smith-Milner is contracted to the Brisbane Bullets for next season. So he's a very good Kiwi basketballer in the NBL as well. Because you mentioned Ty Webster in France, you also did a couple of paragraphs about Yanni Wetzel in the paid section of our newsletter yesterday, who has been playing in Germany. What's just dump all the Yanni Wetzel yarns that you've got in a couple of minutes here?
Well, there has been some like weird. This is what you get when you get the NBL, the Aussie NBL, which most of its media is kind of like in-house stuff. So I think information gets filtered quite selectively. So I remember hearing there was one of their jokers was talking about maybe there's whispers that Yanni Wetzel might come back to the NBL, and then it was either the same guy or someone else just like outright was like, well, no, I mean, it whispers, and it just means if the offer's good enough, everyone's got a price. There's always a possibility if the offer, but realistically, no, that's not going to happen. It's like contradicting the own scoop, which was strange. But maybe an agent had something to say. I don't know, but I don't think Yanni Wetzel would come back to the NBL at this stage, and nor do I think he should, because he's in his third year with Alba Berlin in Germany, who are a EuroLeague team. So they're playing they're the worst EuroLeague team. They're last, like 5-28 record. But that's Yanni Wetzel, the only New Zealander currently playing in EuroLeague basketball, and where he's been pretty solid in his first couple years. Like his first year was all right. Second year he made improvements in the German Bundesliga stuff. Third year, he's maintained the very similar levels to what he did last year, but the big difference is he's starting to produce the same kind of games in the EuroLeague stuff as well, against better opponents and situations where his team is almost always the underdog. Like it's kind of, like I say, they're kind of the worst team in that competition at the moment. But Yanni Wetzel's out there putting up some pretty good numbers, averaging in double digits for scoring, getting good rebounds, and more recently as well, he's had 3 or 4. Really quite high scoring games where he's gone like 15 plus points and then got good rebounds, shooting at good clips as well. And basically just like the summary line, he's probably playing the best basketball of his career, and no one really notices because he's doing it away in Germany, and so people are just sitting there out of sight, out of mind. Well, I wonder if he would come back to the NBL. I wonder if he would play for the Breakers if they offered him enough. Like, yeah, if you offered him enough, maybe, but just because you haven't heard of him lately doesn't mean he's not doing some pretty outstanding things. He's in probably career best form for Alba Berlin at the moment over in Germany, with a little bit to go in their season as well. So they're hoping to, the EuroLeague stuff isn't going to go anywhere. They're guaranteed to finish last with a few games to go. But if they're going a little bit of a run in the Bundesliga, they might still sneak into the playoffs there, which, with what Wetzel's doing at the moment, that's very possible.
I do find it interesting, like because I asked you about Yanni Wetzel without any NBL context on my mind, but it's the same as the it's a similar kind of vibe I get when discussing the footballers. It's like there's this footballer, they need to be available for Auckland FC or Wellington Phoenix. Like New Zealand needs to be able to sign them, but it's kind of that good space where there's these guys. Because you also mentioned, you mentioned them earlier in the podcast, but you also did a couple of paragraphs about them in the newsletter. Finn Delaney, there's someone else in Japan. Who's the other guy?
Isaac Fotu.
Yeah. Isaac Fotu. Like, these are really good basketballers who, like the Kiwi footballers, they might be too good for New Zealand. But I'm kind of balancing it. I think it's more like you can do anything playing in the A-League. But sorry, that's a terrible sentence. Like you can be an international footballer playing in the A-League. Like I'm big on that. Like Costa Barbarouses, he's doing legendary stuff. He's an A-League legend. He's a Kiwi football legend. But just because he's playing in the A-League doesn't like diminish what he is, who he is, what he's done, and all that stuff. So I do have that line of thinking. But it's what you're saying about Yanni Wetzel. Like a lot of these dudes, they're so good, they might just have better opportunities overseas that are better opportunities than playing for the Breakers or playing for an Australian NBL franchises, considering how many basketball opportunities there are around the world. And you only need to look at the imports we get here in New Zealand for the NBL to remind you that the basketball world is ginormous. Because there's so many random dudes pop up in the NBL and you're like, you probably just like were playing in Turkey and then you're playing in this country and now you're playing in New Zealand. It's like there's just so many professional opportunities, and because a lot of these basketball competitions, they're a month here, a month there. It's not like a full year-round season. So it's shout out to Yanni Wetzel. We sees you as well. You're doing some great stuff over in Germany. Ty Webster in France, Finn Delaney, Isaac Fotu in Japan. Let's get back into football. A little bit of housekeeping. Chris Wood, he's still out injured. I learnt that because I was like hyped up to see the Nottingham Forest highlights. He's not playing, so we just changed the channel. That's all good. We're there to watch Chris Wood. He's out of action. I imagine he'll come back sometime soon. Nottingham Forest, did they win without Chris Wood, or like are they shit without him? Or?
They played a couple games without him. He's missed 3 games since he got back from the international break. One was the FA Cup quarterfinal, which they won on penalties against Brighton, a team that when they played them previously, they won 7-0 and Chris Wood scored a hat-trick. So without Chris Wood, they went to penalties, but they did win the shootout without the best penalty taker in the world, so that was all right. Then
not
they
what we
beat
want to hear.
Manchester United 1-0
Like
without Chris Wood.
I want Nottingham Forest. They miss all their penalties without Chris Wood. They suck without
Yeah.
Chris Wood.
Well,
That's
so
what I want
in
to.
a shootout, you know he only gets to take one, so you need the other guys to score a few just to keep his action as relevant as possible. But yeah, they won 1-0 against Manchester United midweek without him. That was a good win where they were pretty much defending the whole time, scored an early goal, but they're really good at defending, so they were able to do that and got a very important victory, followed by a very pesky 2-1 loss to Aston Villa on the weekend, again without Chris Wood. So that not only is points dropped, but it's against Aston Villa, who climb back in, like they're sort of hanging on to the fringes of the Champions League stuff. So I think there's 7 games to go, and there's some work to be done. They should still get top 4. Frankly, top 5 is probably going to get you Champions League because of the coefficient stuff. But they're not quite there yet, and they will need Chris Wood to come back and score a couple more goals, get to his target of 20 for the season, get them a couple more victories. Good news is it doesn't sound like the injury was anything other than just some heavy bruising from landing on his hip, and that's painful. That's on a joint. It's very hard to run when your hip is bruised, but it's the manager keeps saying, he's done this like 4 press conferences in a row. He just keeps saying, day by day, we are assessing. Day by day, we'll see how he feels tomorrow. So I think he's close. I think there's a chance he might play this weekend, hopefully, because they kind of, they can get away with slipping up to Aston Villa once, but they can't be dropping too many points from this situation like that if they want to finish as high up as they can.
So yes, Chris Wood still out injured. I mentioned Ollie Kalotti, McCowett had that assist. Any other standouts on the Flying Kiwis? Just hard and fast type of standouts?
Riley Bidwar keeps scoring goals in his USL team in America.
Just quickly.
Ryan Thomas back in action.
Wait.
That's
So
beautiful.
USL is second tier American league.
It's below MLS, yeah,
Yep,
which the
lovely.
MLS probably has too many teams to start with. And then USL is a decent drop from that. So it's
That's
not,
right.
this isn't like the kind of context to
It's
get
just
you into
second
all
league.
white stuff, but it's good for,
Because when you
it's the second tier and he's scoring some goals.
when you say USL, like no one knows what USL is.
Well, you know it if you're following Riley Bidwar and
I mean,
we got some footy fanatics who must listen to the podcast as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've also got some
But fair
non-footy
point,
fanatics, but because it's not, it doesn't have like a catchy name. Like MLS, like Premier League,
they're all just letters, aren't they, in America?
that's for damn sure. So sorry for interrupting. Keep going. Ryan Thomas.
Yeah, Ryan Thomas has played 90 minutes in a couple games in a row. He's captaining Pick Swallow. He's looking, frankly, like awesome. I think he's been great. He's been sharp. He reckons he's pain-free and with his 2 reconstructed knees, and at the other side of his long battles with injury, hopefully that's able to maintain. Because he's looking solid where he is. McCowett getting an assist was an important one. That was especially because Silkeborg won that game. They needed a victory. They got to try finish top of they dropped into the relegation round. So the second half of with the league got split in half for the last sort of quarter of it. They just missed out on the top half. But if they can finish top of the bottom half in Denmark then they will still get a chance to qualify for Europe. Plus they got to keep up their form because they're in the semi-finals of the Danish Cup, which they won last season. Joe Bell's season is up and running in Viking. They had a pretty bad loss in the first round, lost to a promoted team, but they had a good win in the most recent game to somewhat balance it out. And then, Michael Boxall played his first game since the All White stuff on the weekend in a victory for Minnesota United, who currently have their best points tally after 7 games of an MLS season in franchise history. And Finn Sermon, at this point, I think we can safely say is just a locked-on first 11 player for Portland Timbers. He's been so good for them, just doing the same stuff he did for the Wellington Phoenix. He just the ball comes near the penalty area, he repels it. It was swinging a right leg through it, whether it's just getting up and hitting those ones clear. Like he just gets rid of it time after time after time. No surprises to Kiwi football fans because we've been watching him do this for the Phoenix, for New Zealand age grade teams, even a little bit for the All Whites when he's had opportunities there, although most of those have come in games they've dominated against Oceania teams. But those certainly we expect to see that following through. the long-term partnership of Tyler Binden and Finn Sermon, very salivating stuff. But the Americans are starting to learn about Finn Sermon now and seeing how his game has translated pretty much completely smooth. Like he hasn't had to adapt who he is. There's the stuff he did well for the Phoenix, he's now doing well at a higher level in MLS, which is fantastic.
And nice little bit of footage from Portland. Finn Sermon mic'd up a training. The training mic'd
Yeah.
up. Not a big fan of the training mic'd up because everyone knows you're mic'd up. Like, you know you're mic'd up. The players know you're mic'd up. So it's not really organic. But when you're on the field, no one knows you're mic'd up. You forget you're mic'd up, and that's where you get the real insights. Like, that's the best mic'd up segments. Otherwise, you might just put like a big microphone at training and just have everyone have all the banter. You might as well just do it that way. But we did learn that some joker thought Finn Sermon was called the Kiwi because of his short, spiky hair, which is literally has never crossed my mind before, but it makes a lot of sense given the kind of furry kiwi fruit. So shout out to Kiwis around the world, the fruits, the birds, and the people. Shout out. We also have Football Ferns. Their games against Chinese Taipei were cancelled, so nothing to report from those games. You were kind of typically, I don't know, you always, I don't want to just
Careful.
You're always pretty negative about Football Fern stuff, to be honest, whether it's like training, whether it's the pitches, whether it's the interims, whether it's the selections. So I don't know if you want to refute that observation I had. Otherwise we'll keep it moving, but I can't just like rip into you and then shuffle us along. Like you can respond to my criticism of your negativity around the Football Ferns.
I don't think it's negativity around the team. I've had to spend more time than most like defending the team in their context in world football and people having completely unrealistic expectations on what they're supposed to be doing and the teams they're supposed to be beating and how many goals they should be scoring. But it's hard not to get annoyed with the situations they're put under. So like they didn't play a game they skipped 2 windows straight after the Olympics, didn't play a game in either of those. They haven't had a coach since before then. They still don't have a coach. They had those 2 games in Costa Rica. That was cool. We're going to follow that with a couple games in Chinese Taipei. Then they decided, actually, I don't know whose decision it was, but somewhere along the lines, they at least agreed to it. That one of those games would only be a practice game, which doesn't count. You just use all your subs and whatever. It's no intensity, no sort of, not exactly what you expect from an international window. But then they cancelled that because the pitch wasn't any good. And then they cancelled the actual game they were going to play because they were going to play it on the same pitch as the other ones. So obviously, if it wasn't good for a practice game, it's not going to be any good for an actual international game. Which means that by the time they're next available to play in a month or two, I think it's like 6 or 7 weeks is the next opportunity, like at the end of the club season when they can play again. And I don't think they have any games scheduled yet for that. They will have played 2 games since the Olympics, which is like a 10-month span. And that's assuming they get games in the end of that 10-month span. So, yeah, I wish I could be a little bit more positive about how they are handled by New Zealand football and whatever. And by the way, those games, and they've only played 2 of their last 19 games since the World Cup ended, 2 of 19 games at home, which also seems like a bit of a wasted opportunity when we've seen so much good stuff from the All Whites coming, playing a bunch of home games of late and really sort of building up a culture and restoring the fan base around them. It seems like the Ferns are not getting the same, not being allowed the same opportunities as that. So, yeah, I think it's probably fair to say there is a bit of negativity in how I have perceived that. I would hope that it's stuff that we can soon put to bed, though, and get New Zealand football maybe giving them a few more, if you just played these Chinese Taipei games at home, you wouldn't have had a problem. We got pitches for days. We've plenty of places we can play international games here. You actually might get some gate receipts too if you can get the crowds turning up. So unfortunately, that was just a missed opportunity of an international window. But maybe next time. Maybe next time we'll have some happier news.
You did finish your Football Ferns paragraphs in the newsletter with this sentence. We're going to need to see the senior women's national team taken a little more seriously, please, folks. So I think that sums up your perspective on the Football Ferns. I did not appreciate your senior women's national team. That's getting a bit American, the old SWNT.
Well, I didn't, yeah, I didn't put it in acronyms, so I think I might have just stayed on the right side of the line there.
But I think, all giggles aside, you have highlighted a clear difference in how the All Whites and the Football Ferns are being scheduled, run, organized. Maybe I should say you are highlighting clear differences in the All Whites program and the Football Ferns program. And I think because we've gone back and forth about the Football Ferns for over a year now, just all the factors and the interims and all the weird stuff going on around the Football Ferns and the Football Ferns. But I think I'm comfortable in settling on a place right now where I can now see through the information relayed by you that there are clear differences in how the Football Ferns and All Whites programs are being set up. And I think that is just an important observation to make right now, and we'll see how that progresses. Because it would get very strange, very awkward, very weird if the Football Ferns and New Zealand football if New Zealand football are not building up the Football Ferns in the way they're building up the All Whites, because that is the opposite of what the other sports are doing. Like NRLW is massive. It's way bigger than Women's Rugby Union and Aotearoa. The Kiwi Ferns are being built up to reflect that. The White Ferns are being built up to reflect the status of women's cricket in Aotearoa. The Tall Ferns are being built up to reflect the status of women's basketball in Aotearoa, whereas the Football Ferns are not having that treatment from New Zealand football. I think I've just kind of summarized it beautifully there. It's all just flowing, like come intuitively to me from the great graces of mystical forces, and I think I just settled on it nicely.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think that's a nice summary of the situation. It could be argued that maybe the Football Ferns got that focus leading into the World Cup, where the All Whites were a little bit more shunned, and now that's just swinging around. But I don't really see that point, because you have two national teams, and surely you need to just treat them the same. Like, you can't just be swapping back and forth between one or the other, or you're not going to make any progress with either, really. So, yeah, man, like I say, maybe next time we'll get some happier Football Ferns situations. We can start with getting the head coach, whether it's just Michael Main locked in permanently, because frankly, he's suffered from them not getting these games in Chinese Taipei, because that's supposed to be his last opportunity in the audition window to be able to show that he's making the progress that means he deserves to continue on in this role, like Darren Baseley was able to do with a couple of tours as interim once upon a time with the All Whites. So he's missed out from this as well. It's an awkward little situation for him, where maybe now there's less information to say whether or not he deserves the gig. So yeah, some nice decisive action would be all right. It would be welcome. It would be good. It would be a step forward.
Like I have been thinking about this, like the Breakers ownership era, and I'll bring it back to the Football Ferns, but the Breakers ownership era was like when Sonoman was running the Shire. It's the beautiful Shire, and then there's this period of time where you just have a terrible leader and everything turns to shit. And it's just your dark years. That's what happened in the Shire. You could say that's what's happening to a few countries. You could say that's what happens to a few organizations. Maybe it just happens within your own personal being, where you just get in a spot where you just have a dark period through the leadership of your mind. Well, I don't know how to clarify that any further, but it's it does feel like that. So the Breakers, they have this period where they're under the dark leadership. They're under the leadership of the Dark Lord. And it's just a terrible time for the Breakers. The fact that I'm even putting the Football Ferns in the same cricketing boundaries as the Breakers of the dark period, the Dark Lord Breakers, is concerning. And by that I mean the Breakers were doing the opposite of all these other Kiwi sports franchises. They were ignoring New Zealand talent, they were ignoring the connection to the community, and they were ignoring any development pipeline at all. The Football Ferns, as I just said before, they're doing the opposite. When New Zealand football, through the Football Ferns, are doing the opposite of what these other organizations, these other sports are doing. So you got a Breakers team that was doing the complete opposite of what rugby league, cricket, and football were doing. And now you've got a New Zealand Football Ferns program that is doing the opposite. That is icky territory to even be. Like, I'm not saying that they're in like a terrible spot because of that. I'm just highlighting that if they continue to go down this route, and it's a path, it's a journey we've been on for a year now at least. You've been talking about these ups and downs with the Football Ferns. It's not a good place to be. And it's something to watch out for with the Football Ferns because they've already had dramas. And now, like, they've got a long-term interim coach. They don't play games. And now I see when you're... Because I think I had a more positive outlook where I was like, oh, you're not selecting your best players. There's development opportunities. You're building the depth. But now these other things are stacking on top of each other. That not selecting your best players just becomes another kind of icky thing. So it's just a fascinating situation to watch out for now that it's all kind of settling nicely in my mind. And you spoke about unrealistic expectations, which brings us to Auckland FC because they had another draw. They love a draw. There's only one team in the A-League that has had more draws, and that's the Central Coast Mariners. But Auckland FC is still top of the table. You highlighted a massive undefeated streak. What's their undefeated streak?
11 games, I'm pretty sure.
So they haven't lost a game in their last 11 games, but there's still this kind of... The local media especially, they love to... And I brought this up a few weeks ago, the old drop points. You know, Auckland FC, they drop points. They had a draw, so now they suck. Draws in football are all right. It's not the worst result you can have. But also, like, something I've been watching for all season is that there's a lot of different players used by Auckland FC. And you're not going to, like... A-League season, it's a pretty long season. They've played 22 games of football. Sure, it's not the Premier League marathon, but you've played 22 games of football. There are going to be games where you're not playing your best. And if you don't lose that, like, they've only had 2 losses. So Auckland FC have had 2 losses. Next best is Western United on 5 losses. So I'm not... And you highlighted this clearly in the newsletter. I think we're aligned on this. I'm not falling for the negativity around Auckland FC. Like, it's just a realistic perspective that they're going to draw some games. They're not going to play their best every single game in a highly competitive competition. Like, the A-League there's 5 teams who have got 10 wins. Auckland FC are top of the table on 13 wins. Very competitive competition. And also, there is I'm of the belief Auckland FC, they're just working their way through a long season. You've seen that with the injuries they've had, how they've absorbed the injuries. You've seen different selections. Like, we just look at that kind of attacking bracket. Start of the season, it was Gillian. Then we saw a bit more Randall. Then we saw a bit more Marley Francois. Like, they just rotated these players in. You see Howison come in and out of the lineup. You've seen Vestrada come in and out of the lineup. There's a lot of moving parts in that Auckland FC roster that I think is building up the quality of depth they have as they battle through a long A-League season. But fresh after their draw against, I think it was Western Sydney Wanderers, who are a good team, like they're fourth now. They are one of the teams on 10 wins. Worst case, like when Auckland FC play quote unquote badly, they draw. I mean, that's not too shabby. So I think we're aligned on the Auckland FC perspective. Still top of the table, still the best team in the A-League. Western United are second, and credit to them, they've won their last 5 games at least, so they're on fire. This is just the part of the fun. The season has the ups and downs, and the downs for Auckland FC right now are draws in front of big crowds. And I'll offer another stadium crowd observation. There is no stadium in New Zealand that has the double whammy of big crowds that Mount Smart has. That's why Mount Smart's the best stadium in New Zealand. That's why I'm big on Mount Smart, because you go Auckland FC, Warriors, they are by themselves the 2 biggest draws in New Zealand sport right now. A lot of draw chat here, but I mean draw as in events. They get the biggest crowds by themselves. You put them together, that double whammy is the best double whammy in New Zealand sport. Because the Super Rugby, well, none of their crowds come close to Auckland FC or the Warriors, for starters. The only sport struggling for fandom, aside from Moana Pacifica, is Super Rugby. But then the only double whammy they have is Super Rugby Aupiki. None of them are coming close to Auckland FC and the Warriors. Just stash that away. But I do want to get into the nitty-gritty of Auckland FC before we go into Wellington Phoenix. Someone we haven't talked a lot about this season is Logan Rogerson. And I really like Logan Rogerson now, having watched a lot of him with Auckland FC this season. We know he's a lively attacking player, good runner of the ball. Like he's a winger type of player, so he's always willing to burst forward with and without the footy. I think his crossing is useful at the very least. If you compare him to Franny de Vries, Rogerson's a better runner than Franny de Vries. De Vries is a better crosser. But Franny de Vries is a good runner up the left flank. Rogerson's a good crosser. So their skills complement each other nicely. But like, you can't say Rogerson's a bad crosser of the football. Like, he gets it in there for sure. Thing about Rogerson, though, is he's always there defensively. And you've been big on the kind of back 4 stats, the Paulson, goalkeeping stuff. Okay, you lose Dan Hall, all good. You just bring in Tommy Smith with an eye. You've got Vestrada, who is a key figure in the defense as well. Like, there is that, it's true, the back 4 is very good. The back 5 with Paulson is very good, but your defense always starts upfield. A good defense means you have strikers who want to defend. You got wingers who want to defend. Nottingham Forest is a good defensive team with Chris Wood because Chris Wood's always behind the ball. It's not because you got the best defensive backs. No, your whole team works hard on defense. I think I'm not saying you do this, but like other people, like it's just all about the back line. So that's a very simple perspective of defense. Because half the time Auckland FC win the ball up the other end of the field because of their strikers, because of their midfielders, and the back line don't even touch the ball. Back to Rogerson, he's part of that. He's always behind the ball. He's always working to cover the outside man, but make sure the inside man is covered as well. Because that's the weird thing in that position. If the ball's on the left, Rogerson needs to bite infield to stop that midfielder getting the ball. But as soon as the ball swings around to his side of the field, then he needs to get over to the wide man to shut down their left back or their left striker. And if their left back goes all the way upfield, as I saw it on the weekend, then suddenly Rogerson's tucking in right beside Sakai. But Rogerson is always willing to do that. And he does it with 100% effort. He does it with mana. He does it just as well as Franny de Vries on the left. So I want to put the spotlight on Logan Rogerson because I see that defensive effort to go with his attacking skill, which I think a lot of people know about Rogerson. But you'd know better than me. Rogerson must be up there as most games played, most minutes for Auckland FC. And if I'm correct in that intuition, he's there for a reason. And you're not playing as a right midfielder in the best defensive team. Let me check that. 21 goals against. Melbourne City are on 20 goals. So they're one of the best teams, if not the best team, depending on your perspective. I'm from New Zealand, so I'm saying they're the best defensive team. You're not playing right midfield in the best defensive team in the A-League if you're not doing the work. And Rogerson is always doing the work. Do you have any minutes or games information there?
Yeah, I do. I was actually wondering the exact same thing while you're saying that, is how he does rate compared to the rest of his team, because like Alex Paulson's played every minute. So obviously Alex Paulson is number one on that list. Rogerson is 7th. He's played the 7th most minutes. He has started 18 out of 22 games, which is pretty good, pretty impressive. I think that is way more impressive when you consider that he's a winger. And where's the next most minutes by a winger? Liam Gillian is 11th. Nader Moreno is 12. No, wait, I'm reading that wrong. Hold on. Alex, yeah, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Nader, and then Matsu is a little further down. He's a striker, but Randall's further down than that. Francois down, he's the only winger who feels like he's been a starter throughout the whole season. There was a little stint there where he played 4 games in a row, I think, off the bench. Let me check how they went during those 4 games. Mr. Rogerson. Yeah. So the 4 games that he played off the bench for encompass both of their defeats. So they're actually undefeated when he starts, which is incredible. And yeah, he is the one guy in that team of the wingers. Moreno, it's because he's, they eased him in a bit and then he's had an injury more recently. So maybe he would be starting more often if he'd had a longer preseason or whatever. But like, we've seen Liam Gillian in favor and we've seen him out of favor. We've seen Marley Francois at the moment is getting his little spotlight. I'm not sure how long that'll last for because I'm not sure he's doing quite enough. But Jesse Randall is probably deserving of a little a stint himself. He's had a few starts recently, more as a striker than as a winger, but he's certainly played on the wing a bit. Yeah, Moreno will come back into the starting lineup once he's fit again. But Rogerson has been a consistent throughout. And he's not an import like Moreno. He's had to earn that. And he has, yeah, I think the work he does in attack, like this is similar to what he was like in Finland, where he would stay wide, he would burst past, very good on the counter-attack because he's fast. And then he gets the ball in those areas and he just looks to whip it into the middle. Not necessarily the floated, curling, swervy crosses that De Vries hits, but he'll just like drill it along the ground, get it into a good spot, try hit that penalty spot maybe, or that gap between penalty spot, 6-yard box, striker or a midfield runner onto it. He's got a couple of assists, so that certainly worked. But I think another factor, similar to what you're saying about how like the defense doesn't do it all by themselves. Like the wingers help out the strike. You defend as an 11-man unit, and the goalkeeper and the centre backs maybe do the most work or they have the most impact within that. But they can't do what they do without guys like Rogerson doing what he does. It's the same going forward as well, where I think one of the key aspects of how Logan Rogerson has performed, like one of the most notable things you can say as a positive about his performances this season is how well he combines with Hiroki Sakai as well. And Sakai as a right back, I think has it was 3 goals and 5 assists. Like a lot of that is coming combining with Rogerson. It's with overlaps or collecting the ball from him. Where is Mr. Franny de Vries? He has 1 goal and 7 assists. So as far as goal contributions go, Sakai has just as many as Francis de Vries, and de Vries is getting a few of those from taking set pieces. So it's not necessarily open play stuff like Sakai. So I think Logan Rogerson deserves a lot of credit for that as well as how well he works in with Sakai. And yeah, I think he's had a brilliant season, and I would not have predicted him to be like coming into the start of things. I think he's a little bit more established than the other Kiwi wingers that they had, but I wouldn't have expected him to be this far ahead in terms of just like locking. I don't know if I would have expected him to be playing more minutes than Cam Howison, but it's actually not even close. Like Rogerson is far and above Cam Howison's impact on this team. So, yeah, I think he's been magnificent. He's been great for them and will continue to be, because I think when you get Moreno on the other side as a bit more of a dribbling threat and someone who likes to cut in and shoot, I think that also just drags a bit more of the attention over that way, and you get more room for Rogerson to be running into and more room for Sakai to be running into with Rogerson linking up with him too. So I think when that starts to happen, you'll see a slightly more clinical Auckland FC team again, as they have been at times in the past. They've drawn 4 of their last 5 games, sure, but as we both seem to agree, drawing is better. Well, I think as everybody with a brain ought to agree, drawing is better than losing. And if you're drawing in your off days, that's fine. And because they won so many games to start the season, they can probably draw 2 of their 4 remaining games, win a couple of those. You might even, with 1 win and 3 draws, that might even be enough for them to finish first. And guess what happens after they finish first, which they probably will, or even if they finish second, wherever they finish, it's still going to be the same thing. What happens next? Playoff footy. What happens in playoff footy? You just got to survive. Like it's just about not losing. And a team that can grind out draws in difficult situations is actually built perfectly for knockout football, which is what Auckland FC are going to have to be doing after they try to wrap up this minor premiership stuff. So this is especially this late in the season. If you're drawing a lot of games at the start, then maybe you're saying, yeah, you might want to figure something out, get some points on the board. But they've got points on the board through the efforts of fellas like Logan Rogerson and Hiroki Sakai and all these dudes. They've got points on the board. They're probably going to finish first. And the next step is to go and win some knockout football, which is going to suit a team that plays as rugged and as difficult and are as difficult to beat as this team is.
Wellington Phoenix also had a good win, 2-1 over Newcastle, and they are now on the rise. They are 11th. So shout out to the Wellington Phoenix, their first win in their last 5 games. There was a nice little game for Josh Oluwayemi in goal. He had a few moments, which was good for him after a grinding season to this moment. But the big guy from this game was Kazuki Nagasawa, who you highlighted earlier in the season. Like, where's Nagasawa? I
might have been wrong about that. Yeah.
Well, do you know where he was?
Well, are you talking about when he was on the bench, actually?
Yeah.
I thought no, because there was a stint where he was on the bench and I was saying, why isn't he starting? But there was also a stint before that where I was saying, what's he doing? Like, how much is he having an impact on this team? So I think I may have been mistaken. No,
but I think that's part of what I was just about to say. Like, early in the season, he's like deep in the midfield. This game, he was right up there with Costa. Like, he was basically playing off Costa's shoulder in a more attacking role, and that was his best game of the season, I reckon. So what have you made of Nagasawa and his best game of the season? Sorry, just had a mind blank.
Well, I think it was his best game of the season. I mean, goal and assist, sort of reasserting himself in the starting line in a different role. Yes, he was like as a sort of left winger, but a left winger who angled in a lot and did try to combine a lot with Costa Barbarouses, which I think brought the best out of Costa Barbarouses as well, because I thought that was Costa's best game for quite a long time. And all I remember hearing like the commentators saying something early on about Costa Barbarousa's been in great form this season, and I like the last month I've been saying I actually don't think he has been in such good form lately. He was great form in the first half of the season, and then the Phoenix have been on this like winless streak since then. And I don't think Costa's been playing anywhere near as well as he was beforehand. This brought him back to the guy we saw at the beginning. And I think the big difference is he's not dropping in and trying to collect the ball in pockets in front of the defense. He's trying to run behind the defense. And his off-ball movement is the best part of his game. And when he's making runs in behind, getting into the penalty area on through balls and flick-ons and stuff, when other guys are playing the flick-ons for him, not him playing them for other people, that's where he's at his best. And he, no coincidence, like he scored a goal set up by Nagasawa in this game. I think it was, I can't remember. Tim Payne set one of them up, actually. I might have got that wrong. Nagasawa scored a goal, though, and those two did combine very nicely together. And yeah, I was wondering about who in the Phoenix team might be the sneaky undercover guy in the way that Max Mata is for the Auckland FC, where when Max Mata is on the field, there's just their team stats are so much better. This is obviously influenced by following Steven Adams and the plus minuses and the net ratings and all this stuff. It seems to be that player for the Wellington Phoenix is Kazuki Nagasawa, who I dug into a few of these numbers here. He's played roughly 2/3, a little bit less than that, but let's say roughly 2/3 of the minutes. He's been off the pitch for roughly a third of the season so far. When he's on the pitch, they score 1.2 goals per 90 minutes. They concede 1.06 goals per 90 minutes. So slightly positive differential there. Not quite what Max Mata's Auckland FC stuff is, but obviously Phoenix aren't as good as Auckland FC, so they wouldn't be. Without Nagasawa on the pitch, they have scored 0.8, well, they average 0.77 goals scored per 90 minutes. They concede 2.44 goals against per 90 minutes. That's a massive differential. In fact, 1,279 minutes on the with Nagasawa on the pitch, they've conceded 15 times. 701 minutes without him on the pitch, they've conceded 19 times. So, in nearly half as many minutes, they've conceded more goals without him out there. Probably a good reason for that. He is someone who gets subbed off a lot, so there's a lot of like chopping up between the different games there for the minutes on and the minutes off. But these are the where are we? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that Nagasawa hasn't started so far this season. There's a 2-1 loss to Adelaide, 1-0 loss to Melbourne City, a 6-1 loss to Auckland FC where he was an unused sub, a 1-0 loss to Melbourne City, a 4-1 loss to Western United, and a 1-0 draw against Sydney FC a couple of weeks ago. So they haven't won a lot of games anyway this season. But in particular, the games where Nagasawa hasn't started, they have lost 5 out of 6 and drawn the other ones. So I wasn't expecting to find this. Like, I was wondering who's going to be the player who's, maybe sneakily impactful like that. I wanted maybe someone like might Matt Sheridan be up there perhaps, or possibly a Corbin Piper or someone like that. But no, it seems to be Kazuki Nagasawa is the guy who has the biggest impact on the Phoenix, being not so much being a great team when he's out there, but they're certainly a worse team when he's not out there.
I also find the Phoenix, I wrote down the Knicks mix. Like, it's just a weird mix of things. Because they're building to next year, but the coach might not be there next year. They got the older players, they got the young players. There's just a lot going on. You've got so many releases during the mid-season. Credit to you, you're kind of like these, like, what? If you fire your coach mid-season, you're not real. Usually you don't get better. Like, there's the interim coach bump, but your team does not get better over the rest of the season. I'm not sure, like, releasing all these players for the Wellington Phoenix has made them a better team. It's pretty obvious it's made them a worse team as far as winning games in the A-League goes, because all those dudes are pretty experienced and are better equipped to help you win games compared to the youngsters. But the youngsters are getting lots of game time because they're building towards next season. They're a development club, but we still don't know what's happening with the coach next season. It's just like a very tricky situation for the Phoenix as far as like me trying to assess where they're at. And they had a good win on the weekend. I just don't feel like everyone's all on board. Like Chiefy needs to stay. Like I think the club might feel that way as far as the dudes who are going to hire him, but they haven't already upgraded his contract. They didn't extend it. They didn't like just automatically do it because you're the man, Chiefy. You're going to be our coach moving forward. We want you to take this young group forward regardless of the results this season. They haven't done that.
Well, I thought it was weird they didn't do that before this season. Like after last season, why didn't you do it then? Maybe
Right,
that's looking like a smart decision now. But I mean, it was a bit of a surprise it didn't happen, before any of this stuff happened.
but I don't think like fans are. I don't think the majority of the fans are like, nah, we need Chiefy to stay.
I actually kind of get the impression the majority of the fans are saying we need Chiefy to go, which I would say pump the brakes on that. I don't know that that feels like an emotional reaction, but yeah, certainly it doesn't seem to be a huge clamor for it. I think people will be fine with it, but I don't think it's something like you're not seeing signs out there being like hurry up and re-sign. That's not happening.
Yeah, it's like there's just not a like clear cut. This is what's going to happen. So we're finishing a underwhelming season for the Phoenix with a lot of uncertainty, and it just makes them tricky to assess, even though you've done your big deep dive a few weeks ago, looking forward to next season for the Wellington Phoenix. Since then, to be honest, it's only got more weirder because they've had a few losses, they've had a few wins. Some dudes are in form, some dudes have dipped down a bit. You've got just a lot of stuff happening there that I don't have a clear picture about. A lot of intuition chat today, and I don't have a clear intuition on where the Wellington Phoenix are at. And I think the more clarity they can offer, the better. But we probably won't have any updates until the end of the season. And I don't even know like if how they finish the season will influence what happens, right? Like, because you kind of feel like if they haven't given Chiefy the job next season already, either he is like trying to leverage them for whatever reason, for whatever method, or they are a bit dubious about what's happening. And it's like when you're very simple terms, very simple perspective is the Wellington Phoenix, like this, like, yeah, you lose players last season, but they have had a lot of kind of glaringly kind of bad moments this season. And a bunch of players have left mid-season. Those things together don't paint the picture of like the Phoenix are on the up and up, even though when you dive deeper into it, there's a lot of nuance. You can still get a positive picture. But when you just use that very crude, simple perspective, it's like, well, they're losing and players are leaving mid-season. Like that, none of that's good. And that only makes it weirder to assess. But then you've got the Chico Heraldez situation as well, which to me sums it all up. Like he was a lone player who was building into the season and was on track to maybe earn a new deal, even though his loan situation is quite complicated, but then he gets injured. Like that sums up the Wellington Phoenix right now, and it's just it's all a bit goofy. Meanwhile, the Wellington Phoenix women, they didn't play this weekend, but they do have a big game coming up, which you were telling me about a few weeks ago. Canterbury United. Canterbury United are 6th, Wellington Phoenix women are 8th. 4 points difference there, but you can kind of, it's one of those, I don't know what you call it because everyone uses different points, like a 4-point win or whatever you want to say, like a
6-pointer.
Yeah, like a bonus win when you're defeating a team on the cusp of finals footy. And then after that, they play Western United. So Canberra 2 games left. Big game against Canberra to keep the finals hope alive. If they're still alive, are they still alive? You still on board finals?
I think
No.
mathematically
Sorry.
they're alive, but realistically they're not, you know.
Right,
I
but
think that's
there's
the situation.
yeah. I don't want to put words in your mouth and say they still like you still think they're going to make the finals because I think you've adjusted that opinion.
Yeah,
But there's still a chance as far as mathematics goes.
I think so. Where's the bloody table here? Um, have you got it? Are you looking at the standings? Oh, here we go. I've got it. Canberra on 27 points in sixth place, and the Phoenix are on 23 points in eighth place, and there must be 3 rounds to go. No, 2 rounds to go. Oh, that's not ideal. But if you win, and if Brisbane Roar don't win, Wellington Phoenix would only be 1 point out going into the last round, which so yeah, if they win, they have a chance. Unfortunately, this game is away though, and they never win away. They always lose 2-1 or they lose 1-0. So that's yeah, hard to picture happening. And that is I think that's sneakily almost a more interesting situation heading into the off season is what they do with the women's team because I don't know if Paul Temple's under contract. I assume he signed a 2-year deal, which I think maybe he is coming off his contract as well. I think they've got more free agents there in the women's side because a lot of players only sign 1-year contracts in women's football so that you have flexibility to go somewhere else in your off season or whatever. Yeah, I don't know because I'm looking at the men's one here, and who are the players who are off contract after this season? David Ball already gone. Scott Wooden, we'll see what happens there. Marco Rojas already gone. Chico Heraldez, we'll see what happens there. Kolakovsky got injured and barely played. Altai's already gone. Sam Sutton, I think a bit of a crucial one. There was a rumor this week that Sutton and Wooden might go to Perth, which I can't for the life of me figure out why either of them would do that. Like, why would you go from a volatile lower half A-League situation to an even worse one? What are you gaining by that? And from Sam Sutton's perspective, like surely he can't be unless he's just best mates with Ollie Sale. Surely he's looking at that situation and being like, well, Sale's career's kind of gone off the skids, or into the skids, off the rails into the skids since he went to Perth. Like he was the All Whites #1 goalkeeper before that. Now he's struggling to hang on to a spot in the squad. Don't really see the point of that. But the other free agents, Oscar Van Hattem, already gone, and then you got 2 scholarship players, Corbin Piper and Dublin Boone. Well, don't know what they'll do with Dublin Boone because he's like, third choice goalkeeper stuff. That's not that consequential. They got to be getting Corbin Piper a new deal, surely. Like you want to sort that out because he is actually from Auckland. So if they don't do anything about that, it'd do pretty well in that Auckland FC team. So you might want to get that one done pronto. But yeah, who did I say? Wooden, maybe Heraldez, maybe Kolakovsky, although I don't really think that will happen, and Sutton and Piper. Like there's the rest of the team that they've got here, including Nagasawa, including Ishige, including Oluwayemi, certainly guys like Hughes Sheridan are there for 3 more years, Tim Payne 3 more years, Nathan Walker 3 more years. Like a lot of the squad that they have is locked in. The women's side, less so. Let me check who is under contract for next season. Daniele, Wynnum, Brazendale, Jerez, McCann, McMillan, all as scholarship players. Elliott, Ingham, Wall, not Paul Temple. So I don't think I named a single experienced player there outside of maybe Alyssa Wynnum, and a little bit of Lara Wall, like and Manai Elliott's getting close to that. Like, but basically their whole squad's coming off contract, and they've had another disappointing season where they should have made the finals, they didn't. It's one thing for that to happen last season. It's another thing for that to be exactly repeated again this season, where it's like you play well enough, you seem to have the talent, you can't grind out the results. And then with that much variability in terms of what the squad is going to look like specifically, as well as the same situation around your coach, I think maybe that A-League women's situation at the Phoenix might even be more volatile and a few more decisions to be made there than what we've got with the men's, which, as we've just established, is pretty volatile already.
I mean, you've got to wrap it up. You got two Wellington Phoenix teams that are mediocre this season. They have been underwhelming as far as the results go. They are. Wait, let me just settle myself. They have been mediocre, which makes them underwhelming, and both coaches are off contract. So that's where the Wellington Phoenix are at as a complete organization.
And there is another element to the Phoenix women's volatility too, which is that next season there will be an Auckland FC team.
Ooh.
And we've just seen Auckland FC put together a really, really competitive, the best team, the best squad in the A-League by as far as results go. Look at the table, that's what it tells you. At the first time of asking, they're going to follow the same playbook for putting together the women's team. They're probably going to look to sign a couple of those Phoenix players since so many of them are off contract. At the very least, those players have got to be aware that they now have like a little bit, they can spark up a little bit of the bidding war there. This is a really pivotal offseason coming up for both of the Phoenix teams. So just basically for the Phoenix club as a whole. And yeah, I don't know that it doesn't feel like they're heading into such a pivotal few months in the best shape, in the best mindset. That's one to track quite closely, I suspect.
Let's get into some rugby league where the Warriors had a bye and the New South Wales Cup Warriors had a bye. So we don't need to. I do have some Warriors stuff to discuss, but I just want to hit a couple of different pockets. Some takes, some notes, some observations. And I've got to do it. I have to do it. I got to talk about eligibility and Daddy Cherry Evans. I don't want to. Like, it's so weird that these are like, you look across the Australian media landscape and something I will say in a couple of minutes shows that I care too much about the Australian rugby league landscape, media landscape. But you've got footy happening, games, players, tactics, style of play, performances. And the things they want to talk about aren't actually like the games. Now, this isn't unique. This isn't new. But again, it does remind you, like, what do I like to do? I like to talk rugby league. I like to talk footy. I like to talk the stuff that happens on the field and trends that are happening, like development pipelines and all that stuff. So that's why I look at those things. I'm just like, you guys can't like actually just come up with something cool to talk about. Instead, you got to do 10 different shows, 30-minute segments about player eligibility. So I'm looking at these two kind of big media stories. To be honest, they're media beat-ups. I'm like, okay, what's the New Zealand angle here? And I don't really have New Zealand angles, but there is one closer to eligibility. But it's obviously New Zealand's been screwed over by state of origin for years. So our perspective in New Zealand is very different to Australia because we've been screwed over every time. That's why Casey McLean choosing to play for the New Zealand Kiwis ahead of New South Wales, even though he's born and raised in Sydney, is rather important because a player chose to play for New Zealand over state of origin. But the thing I've always been thinking about is Aussies don't know what they want state of origin to be. Because you've still got a lot of Australians who are like, no, state of origin, it's like, it's the trial for Australia. You play state of origin because you want to play for Australia. So that's the one thing. It's like a state of origin is the pipeline to playing for Australia. Off just ruined my train of thought. But then there's this other thing. State of origin is an absolute monster as an entertainment product. And So like that's where you get the match payments that are so massive for playing State of Origin, 50K, 70K, whatever it is these days, just to play one game of State of Origin. That's why everyone wants to play State of Origin. So you've got these two different perspectives on State of Origin from Australia that are directly working against each other. Because if you're only selecting players who want to play for a State of Origin, if you're only selecting players for State of Origin who want to play for Australia, you're not building the best entertainment product you can. The current eligibility situations you see are pretty easy to see through because these players are born in Australia. They grow up in Australia. But there's dramas because they don't want to play for Australia. They're still completely eligible to play for New South Wales and Queensland. Like Payne Haas isn't someone who is from New Zealand, or like Payne Haas isn't someone who was born in Samoa, came to Australia at 15 years old, and it's a like origin situation. No, like, he's Australian. He's from Australia. He's got all these players have so many different heritage, multicultural, around all that stuff. But the issue is the Australians think to play State of Origin, you need to play for Australia. But then you get into the tier 1, tier 2 situations that do make it a little bit awkward. But if you're trying to build the best State of Origin product, you still keep, like if you're playing for Queensland, you still need to be eligible for Queensland. That doesn't change. If you're playing for New South Wales, you still need to be eligible for New South Wales. That doesn't change. Like whatever it is, born in New South Wales, play your junior footy in New South Wales, your parent played for New South Wales, whatever it is, you need to still meet that eligibility criteria to play for New South Wales or Queensland. That does not change at all. All that changes is what country you represent in International Rugby League. To me, they're completely separate. So ultimately, someone like Casey McLean, he can still play for New South Wales because he's eligible. He's born in Sydney. He grew up in Sydney. He played junior rugby league for New South Wales. He is eligible for New South Wales. In a completely different bubble, he can play for New Zealand Kiwis. Payne Haas, he is eligible for New South Wales, and he can play International Rugby League for whoever he wants. He could play for the Philippines. It's all good. But the Australians, they put everything, they put their Aussie pride on the pedestal where they still think if you're playing State of Origin, you need to play for Australia. And that has been weakened a little bit because of the tier 2 kind of nation situation. And it's only going to be weakened even more as the mix of players increases. And I'm saying the only thing that's weakened is Aussie pride. It's not State of Origin. State of Origin isn't weakened because you have the best eligible players playing for State of Origin, and then you have the best eligible players playing for International Rugby League. But the Aussies, they seem to think that State of Origin is International Rugby League. And it's all quite strange because I'm looking at Australia and I'm like, you guys don't know what you want State of Origin to be. Is it some sort of trial for Australia? Or is it a standalone event that is one of the biggest sporting events in the world, to be honest? Like Kiwis in New Zealand, for any Australian watching, you would like you've got friends from New Zealand in Australia. They support New South Wales or Queensland. Anyone in New Zealand knows how big State of Origin is because we all watch it. We all support a team. In New Zealand, you choose a team. You choose Queensland or New South Wales. That's how big State of Origin is. So if State of Origin is that big an event, it should be completely separate to International Rugby League, I believe. that takes out the whole eligibility situation. All that matters for state of origin eligibility is, are you eligible for New South Wales or are you eligible for Queensland? That's it. Because I think the Aussies are worried that, like, oh, if you open it up to everyone, you're going to have players who don't feel the Queensland pride, the New South Wales pride. No, that's not what's happening. It's not being opened up to everyone. Nothing's changing. You still need to be eligible for New South Wales and eligible for Queensland. That's it. That's all that matters. But whatever international path you choose is completely separate to state of origin. Compliment to Aussies because state of origin is so massive. That's the most important thing. Like right now, aside from Samoa versus Tonga, I think New Zealand versus Samoa, New Zealand versus England, they're massive events. They can be massive events, but right now, state of origin is bigger than international rugby league. That will change, but that's how it is right now. So view it that way. State of origin is a completely separate entity, but with all this eligibility stuff on the radar being talked about, you still need to be eligible to play for New South Wales. Like, the doors aren't opening to anyone. You can't be a Kiwi and just like, oh, I want to play for New South Wales. No. You need to be eligible to play for New South Wales and to play for Queensland. That's the most important thing. Then you go the DCE saga. Not many Aotearoa wrinkles here. Aside from my perspective, where this shows you how old school the Australian Rugby League media is, because the Daly Cherry Evans situation is intertwined with two different media organizations in Sydney. And there has always been 2 or 3 competing media organizations in Sydney, in the one city, revolving around rugby league. So like it was kind of fun to watch, but the early days of that DCE saga, he went on Channel 9's show, and then the Fox Sports show had a different response, had a different perspective. Ever since then, everything is along those lines. But here in New Zealand, we kind of just think, oh, Daly Cherry Evans, bit of a drama, la ha ha. No, that is an insight into a very old school, kind of backwards at this stage, because they're all, you watch NRL 360 and there's 3 bald dudes there. 3, Gordon Tallis isn't necessarily white, but like there's a lot of white faces there, you know? And that shows you how backwards it is. But the Daly Cherry Evans media saga, it strictly involves 2 competing media organizations, so everything is going to be delivered from those perspectives. Daly Cherry Evans himself might be aligned with one of those media organizations. The other media organization might have a source here, a source there. They seem to have a direct line to the Manly Sea Eagles CEO. So you can kind of see the forest through the trees, the leaves, and the woods, and all that stuff as well. So that's just some stuff I had to get off my chest, because you watch it all unfold and you're like, this is just weird. But let's get back to some footy. Righto. So you've also got just a couple of Warriors things. Penrith Panthers. The storyline around them right now is that their defense sucks. And I'm seeing James Fisher-Harris playing more minutes at the Warriors, making more tackles at the Warriors than he did for the Panthers last season. So, like, when I'm trying to figure out what's the biggest loss for the Panthers, to me, it's James Fisher-Harris. And for Warriors fans, this tells you the benefit of having Fisher-Harris. He is a defensive monster. Fitness, the agility, the wrestle, the efforts. That is what makes you a dominant middle forward. Sorry, that's what makes your middle defense so good. And that's the biggest weakness for the Panthers right now. But that's something that's been a massive boost for the Warriors. And that's when you look at, okay, Adam Fanua-Blake, credit to him, he's awesome. He's far better running the footy than James Fisher-Harris. But when you look at what Fisher-Harris does for the Warriors right now, his defense is just as useful as Adam Fanua-Blake's running. And if that impact has been quite clear for me with James Fisher-Harris at the Warriors, and then I'm watching Joseph Tapine just do what he always does for the Canberra Raiders, which is always incredibly fun. Those two dudes are getting into like legendary zones. And I always have fun watching Joseph Tapine. And that win for the Raiders last round also had a game-winning try for Sebastian Kris. Now, Sebastian Kris has already played for the Kiwis. Here we go with the eligibility. Sebastian Kris, he's from Queensland. But Sebastian Kris chose to play for the New Zealand Kiwis ahead of State of Origin. Even though, can you just do a quick Google search where's Sebastian Kris? Kris, where is he born? Because I think he's born in Queensland. Sebastian Kris, born and raised in Queensland, he is eligible for Queensland as much as anyone else. But he's chosen to play for the Kiwis, which shows you about the Kiwis' kind of mana. But also, there's no reason why Sebastian Kris can't play Origin. He's as Queensland as any other joker. Confirmation.
He certainly is. He was born in Brisbane and he went to St Mary MacKillop College, which sounds extremely Queensland.
So like that's the origin situation right there. Sebastian Kris is as Queenslandish as anyone else. He should be allowed to play for Queensland. But funnily enough, he chose to play for New Zealand. Credit to him. But that rules him out of Queensland. That shouldn't be the case. He's a hardy Queenslander. But he's not representing Australia, so then they get off it. Sebastian Kris, for me, he's one of my starting centres in a Kiwis top 17. I'm going Matthew Tomoko, I'm going Sebastian Kris right now. Shout out Sebastian Kris, shout out Matthew Tomoko. What else do we have here? The debuts. We had Moses Leo make his debut for the Storm. Sean Mullany made his debut for the Titans. Moses Leo, when I was doing the Kiwi-NRL Spotlight, it was pretty interesting because the Melbourne Storm signed him in September for 2026. We are now in April and he's made his debut in 2025. So he was signed in September. Melbourne Storm got an early release from his New Zealand rugby contract in mid-November. Then, so that's quick already, right? Like the Melbourne Storm want him so bad, they sorted out an early release from his New Zealand rugby contract. Then he plays one game in New South Wales Cup and he makes his debut. So that's how.
Didn't Will Warbrick play like a whole season before he
definitely did,
debut?
And that's there's funny enough, there's been some more information, but the Will Warbrick situation is more how the Storm operate. We want you to play 20, 30, 40, 50 New South Wales Queensland Cup games before you're ready for NRL. That's what the Warriors are doing right now. But then we're listening to Matty Johnson and Brandon Smith, and Brandon Smith was talking about Suliasi Vunivalu and how he was like, apparently he was not playing very well. And everyone was like, what's going on? Because Storm recruited him from First 15 Rugby in New Zealand. But then they were down on troops and they just thought like, we just got to select him. And I think he scored a bunch of tries on debut, never looked back. It was a similar thing when I was listening to Craig Bellamy and Harry Grant in the post-match press conference, they was like just talking how like they're down on troops, so they need someone to step up. But also Moses Leo like earned that debut over the summer at the Melbourne Storm. So Craig Bellamy was aware that he was earning that opportunity, but then Harry Grant also said the senior players at the Storm wanted him in the team. So that shows you got a lot of positive reinforcement there. The Storm rushed the contract process, and then he earned that NRL debut from a summer training period at the Melbourne Storm, which many folks believe has the toughest summer training period. So shout out to Moses Leo. It was a very difficult matchup. Second game of rugby league. He played one game for the North Sydney Bears, and then he's lining up against Tolutau Kula on a makeshift right edge. He like Kula had like 4 line breaks, like 9 tackle breaks, and Moses Leo had like 7 missed tackles, 59% tackling. So there was a very direct statistical alignment there. But the Storm won easily, and Moses Leo was playing on both sides of the field. So he started at right edge, and then I think he finished like left wing because they had a bunch of injuries, Coates and Pappenhausen. But Leo's fast, very elusive, strong. He's obviously got the work ethic, having impressed at the Melbourne Storm. The defense is always a work on, but again, he's not getting that opportunity if the Storm don't think he can do a job defensively. But that's where I get back to the Vunivalu thing, because I'm like, the defense may not have even mattered. They might have just been like, nah, just chuck him in and we'll sort it out. And to be honest, that it worked because they won convincingly. And there was like a makeshift edge. So he's got Grant Anderson on the wing. Toa Hughes was a late inclusion. There's a lot going on around Moses Leo. Tough matchup against Kula. So I don't want to judge his defense just based on that game. And there's a lot of room for development. Shout out to Alec MacDonald. Probably the dude that most New Zealand Rugby League fans have no idea is a Kiwi. I've loved talking about Alec MacDonald. Very fast, hard-working Melbourne Storm forward in the middle. This season, he has 1 tackle break and 1 missed tackle. I don't know what that means.
Balance each other out.
But it's just a beautiful, beautiful little stat nugget. 1 tackle break, 1 missed tackle for Alec MacDonald. I think he is, the thing I always say with Alec MacDonald, again, the Melbourne Storm system, Melbourne Storm work ethic. Alec MacDonald is the mahi man at the Melbourne Storm. Like, his job is the hard work. He's not big. He's not very powerful. He just rips in at the Melbourne Storm. You know, like if you're one of those hard-working, the most hard-working, gritty players at the Melbourne Storm, you're doing something crazy. And he's doing it. And I think he is one of the perfect small forwards available to the New Zealand Kiwis to balance out all the big boppers. Like, I'm not selecting him ahead of Aaron Clark, but he's in the mix for that type of role. Dylan Brown, Eagles had a win. Dylan Brown was all right. Guess what? What did Dylan Brown do? Excellent running, excellent tackling. The issue around the Dylan Brown perception is when people want him to be something that he's never really done. But the issue is he got a contract, and the contract tells you, like, paints a kind of false picture about Dylan Brown. Dylan Brown's awesome because he came into the NRL as an 18, 19-year-old, and he was averaging 100 meters, and he didn't miss many tackles. That is premium number 6 type of stuff. with a little bit of kicking, a little bit of razzle dazzle. That, when he's doing that, he is awesome. And that's what works best for the Kiwis. And I think that is what will work best alongside Kalen Ponga at the Knights. But don't let the contract situation cloud what type of player Dylan Brown is. Because a lot of people get down on Dylan Brown because they want him to be something he is not. Alec McDonald's one of my favorite Kiwi-NRL risers of the season. Obviously, Xavier Willison as well. I've been talking a lot about Xavier Willison, but also we had a big performance from Mawene Hiroti from New Plymouth for the Cronulla Sharks at centre. And he, against the Raiders, he's played, I think, like more than 2 games in just one of his last 5 seasons. He's played 1 game in the 2 years prior to this season, and this was his first game this season. So hopefully Mawene Hiroti can get a bit of an opportunity for the Cronulla Sharks. But the fact that he has stayed with the Sharks and been in their NRL mix for 5 or 6 years, despite not getting a consistent opportunity, like he is a very reliable outside back and club man for the Cronulla Sharks. He's just been in the mix for the Sharks, even though he's not getting much game time. Very impressive against the Raiders. Can play wing, can play centre, can play fullback. He's someone to watch out for. But also Adam Pompey. Got to shout out Adam Pompey, who's been doing a very solid job for the Warriors, mainly at centre. But one of the biggest things about the Warriors this season is how easily they deal with mid-game injuries, concussions, and that stuff. And that stems from Adam Pompey. Adam Pompey starts at centre, he can play wing. Easy. And also shout out to Kurt Capewell in that regard, because he's done a solid job moving from edge forward to centre. And that just helps the Warriors deal with adversity in a game. But Adam Pompey and Mawene Hiroti adding themselves into the Kiwis mix. I have Ali Leotawa as a better centre than them right now. Leotawa is also eligible for Samoa, though. So then you get into the Hirotis, the Pompeys, the Casey McLean. McLean's obviously higher up as well. Going back to the debuts, Sean Mullany made his debut for the Titans coming off the bench in their loss to the Dolphins. Would have liked to see Sean Mullany play more than 15 minutes because the Titans were pretty bad in their first half. And you'd like maybe just chuck him on the field to change the flow of the game because you're getting absolutely destroyed. But he was solid in his 15 minutes, and he's another player. Like, he's the opposite of Moses Leo, right? Like, Leo has had a very swift few months, but Sean Mullany, he's from Auckland, was initially recruited by the Cowboys, went through their system, might have played a bit of reserve grade up in Queensland at the Cowboys, came back to Auckland, had a year or 2 with the Warriors, and then he went back to Mackay and North Queensland, and he was kind of on the fringe of the Cowboys squad for a couple of years. He's played the last 5 or 6 years of Queensland Cup and started to get train and trial deals at the Cowboys. Then he got a train and trial deal at the Gold Coast Titans, and he must be making a good impression down there to get a debut coming off the bench. He's a hooker who can play a bit of small forward as a, hard-working middle forward as well. And he made his debut because Sam Verrill's starting hooker, he was out injured. So then Chris Randall went to starting hooker. Sean Mullany goes to the bench, and we'll see if he can get another opportunity. I'd say Moses Leo is probably more likely to get more games ASAP, but I wouldn't be surprised if Mullany just stays in that bench role if Verrills is out injured and kind of builds up his minutes. Rabbitohs have had a couple of good performances. They don't have many Kiwi-NRL lads in their top tier. Obviously, Saliva Havili, Tongan International, he's a Manurewa junior. We've talked about Bailey Bentley Harpe from Kawakawa, Moriwa junior. But as we get into the Kiwi-NRL deep cuts that I've got here, the Rabbitohs also have Salesi Ata. He's on the cusp of making a debut as a middle forward. And they've also got Nazareth Toa. He's a Maris junior, playing reserve grade, mainly a middle forward, edge forward. But they've also picked up Devonte Mihinui, who's another Glenora junior from Auckland, who has had a bit of a whirlwind couple of months because he was with the Sea Eagles. He was playing Jersey Flegg last year, but then also played New South Wales Cup. Then he seemed to move to the Bulldogs, but now he's with the Rabbitohs. So I think he's moved from the Bulldogs to the Rabbitohs within the last couple of months. So the New South Wales Cup Rabbitohs, let me confirm because it was just the initial team list I saw. They may have had... Where are the Rabbitohs? Rabbitohs this weekend in New South Wales Cup. No, that's the Panthers. Holy jacket. Rabbitohs, sorry about this. We're just all over the show at the back end of the podcast. That's New South Wales Cup. I may actually be looking for Jersey Flegg, maybe not. I don't know. But Mihinui is now with the Rabbitohs, the point being. And all the emerging Kiwi-NRL players at the Rabbitohs are in their forward pack. Couple more Kiwi-NRL deep cuts. Francis Manuleilua Papatoetoe Jr. playing New South Wales Cup for the Knights. Fantastic try this weekend. He is on the rise with the Newcastle Knights. Te Hurunui Twiddle, Turanga Waiwai Jr. Big game in New South Wales Cup. It might have been his debut, playing fullback after good work in the NRL trials for the Eels. Very classy player. Very tough, very physical, but he's got a kicking game, good passing game. Watch out for Twiddle. Jensen Taumoepiao, another Western Suburbs junior from New Plymouth. That's the same club as Mawane Hiroti. He scored a very good try for the Raiders in New South Wales Cup. Initially recruited by, I think, the Rabbitohs maybe, but he had plenty of time at the Sharks. Went up north to the Cowboys system last year. Now he's with the Raiders. Cassius Tia. He's getting a lot of game time in New South Wales Cup for the Bulldogs, mainly as a half, but he has done a bit of centre mahi at the Bulldogs as well. He's another Maris junior. And also we've got Jerome Falamoy, who seems to have moved from the Knights back to Auckland with the Warriors. So the Knights recruited him and Elijah Salisa Leamawana from Southern Cross campus, same school, same age grade, kind of, as they might have been a bit older than Lekahala Sema. Leamawana's getting good New South Wales Cup game time along with Manuleilua. Jerome Falamoy started in Jersey Flegg this year, I think, with the Knights, but then he just appeared on the New South Wales, the New Zealand Warriors Jersey Flegg team at centre a couple of weeks ago, scored 2 tries, and he came off the bench for their game over the weekend, which was a win in Fiji for the Warriors Jersey Flegg team. Good win over there, and Jerome Falamoy was on the bench. So that's a bit of rugby league. Lots of deep cuts, and we got a bit of cricket to finish with. Stay with the information. Brett Hampton, county championship debut. He played for Hampshire. He took 1 wicket in the first innings, scored a couple of runs with the bat, and took 2 wickets in the second innings in a big win for Hampshire. He was batting 9, which is lower than he bats for Northern Districts. And I am very excited, hopefully to see Brett Hampton hit 6s. And that will be, got the burps, something that I am looking forward to. Took a couple of wickets, but he was one of the most expensive bowlers for Hampshire and bowled the fewest overs. But he did take wickets. A couple of Blackcaps things. So in each one of these games against Pakistan, the youngsters did something. Muhammad Abbas in the first game, sixes, fours, boundaries. Mitch Hay in the second game, gritty start to his innings, sixes, the same amount of sixes as fours, as Mitch Hay tends to do. Reece Mariu in the third ODI, he got a score, nice 50-odd. What did you make of Reece Mariu? Did you see his batting in the third ODI? Because he got a start in the second ODI against Pakistan and then got out. What did you make of his strokes in the third ODI?
Well, I only saw the highlights because it's time for preseason football now on Saturdays apparently. So I only saw the second innings live. I only saw the highlights in between of Buddy's innings, but yeah, like pretty sharp. He's clearly a player who can play like he's got an array of shots to him, and it seemed because didn't you say because like all of his runs basically have been scored in Plunket Shield. Like he was an absolute monster in the Plunket Shield this season. It was 2 runs off of Nick Kelly for most runs in the competition. Not as much. Well, not as prolific in the white ball stuff though, was he? And we explained why that is, why he's into Blackcap playing white ball cricket is, it's the one that was available. It's a sort of introduction into international cricket. They probably are giving him these games building up. Maybe he'll be a consistent white ball player down the line, but certainly they'll be hoping that he can be at this rate probably the next test opener in a couple years time. Like they're giving him experiences to build him towards that. But it's true though, isn't it, that his one day stuff domestically isn't as sharp. I don't know. I'm not sure what the question is about that, but I kind of feel like I wanted to throw it back on you anyway about that, about how like was he batting here the way he does in the Plunket Shield, or was this something new for his game and what he was showing there and getting himself a nice wee 50 in ODI cricket? Was there anything you noticed there? Since I can't really say much about his shots because I didn't watch enough of it.
Well, you saw the highlights. That's all we need
Well,
to
I
know.
saw the highlights, and yeah, like I said, he batted nicely.
Yeah, how did you feel watching those highlights? I'm sure you felt pretty good because he's a good stroke maker, but he had a strike rate of 95 in that innings.
Mm.
And maybe the thing about Reece Mariu, because you do look like first class, Plunket Shield, lots of runs, dominant, the most prolific young batter I've seen in a couple of years at that Plunket Shield level, especially for an opener. He's not a gritty opener, I don't really think, though, which is great. I think he's very watchful, knows where his off stump is, knows which shots to play, which deliveries to leave, and all that stuff. But if he gets going, he's going to score quickly. So his knock against Pakistan, he was the only top 5 batter to have a strike rate over 90. That includes Tim Seifert, Daryl Mitchell, Nick Kelly, very aggressive batter, and also Henry Nicholls, who we know doesn't have a strike rate at all, so don't worry about that. But Reece Mariu finished that series 2 innings with a strike rate of 88. That's aligned fairly well with his one-day strike rate of 82.4. Even his first-class strike rate of 62 is pretty high for a young opening batter. So maybe a good comparison. Like the other extreme I'm thinking of as I think about the 10 best young cricketers in Aotearoa that I'll drop in a jiffy, we have Curtis Heafy, who has a very good record. He's got a first-class strike rate of 37.5. That's almost half a Reece Mariu's. There's different ways, like Curtis Heafy, fantastic young batter. He will play for New Zealand. He's awesome. But to me, that tells me more about Reece Mariu. What I think the piece of information you're looking for is don't pigeonhole Reece Mariu as a grit and grind opener. Let me go Tom Latham. We're stretching out this podcast, but who cares? We're just here loving Aotearoa sport, doing our best to just chat about Aotearoa sporting matters. Tom Latham, first class strike rate of 50. Test strike rate of 47.4. But let's stay with first class. 50. Reece Muddy was 62. Also averaging 59.8. Both of those are higher than Tom Latham, who's averaging 41.8 in first class. Tom Latham has a list day strike rate, of course, far bigger sample size for Tommy Latham. 1 day strike rate of 86, Reece Mudday's 82. But it's that first class strike rate that tells me the most, informs me the most. Reece Muddy is not a grit and grind opening batter. He's class. So he does the defensive work. Logan Rogerson, he does the defensive work, but he's there to score runs. And he scored runs again in the ODI format, which was very impressive for someone who many think he's just a red ball opener. He's got to take it slow. I think he's just a pure class batter. And I wouldn't make the mistake of pigeonholing Reece Muddy. I wouldn't even cling to any kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I just wouldn't put him in a box. I'd just say, like, just let Reece Muddy cook, let him brew, let him simmer, and just enjoy it. Because he just scores runs. Like, that's literally what he does. That's why he's in the team. And if you're scoring runs, again, this is strike rate chat. This is what I love about strike rates, is they do inform you about how a batter goes about their business. And Reece Muddy had a decent ODI strike rate. He's got a decent first-class strike rate with a monster average. All of that just tells me he is a very classy batter. But on the batting side, we had a different batter in each game. A different young batter in each game score runs. Then we go to the bowling department. Well, the best bowler of the summer, aside from Matt Henry, like the whole summer, aside from Matt Henry, was Jacob Duffy. I've mixed up my order. So after Will O'Rourke emerges, then we've got the emergence of Nathan Smith and Zach Folks. Ben Sears gets a lot more game time. And Jacob Duffy is the best bowler behind Matt Henry of the whole summer. So that tells you a lot about Blackcaps cricket right there. We've got the 3 young batters chiming in for 1 game each of this ODI series. Duffy's 30 years old. Like, again, Duffy, Chapman, they're 30 years old. They're not youngsters. But Duffy is in career best form. But it's the kind of next wave for the seamers. Will O'Rourke, Nathan Smith, Zach Folks, Ben Sears, Jacob Duffy. Why am I saying Zach Folks? Because he's one of our best T20 bowlers. Behind Jacob Duffy. Will O'Rourke, he hasn't been as good in ODIs or T20s, but he's been the best red ball bowler. Nathan Smith's the best all-rounder of that group. And Ben Sears is the wild man who just takes wickets. We've been going way too long for me to do the comparison to Tim Southee and Trent Boult statistically, but I do want to put that on the agenda. Because these dudes are all doing pretty nicely, and I wouldn't be surprised, like, Jacob Duffy, after how many games he's played, that's far better than Tim Southee and Trent Boult. Let alone Ben Sears, Zach Folks, and Will O'Rourke. I'm not sure if I listed their career stats in the paid section of our newsletter. Yeah, don't worry about that. But let's go 10 best cricketers to finish here. 10 best young cricketers after the summer. Auckland, we have Bevan Jacobs and Jock McKenzie. Bevan Jacobs, easy selection. He was in the Blackcaps squad but didn't play. Jock McKenzie, fantastic all-rounder, easy, cruisy, seam bowling, decent batter, underrated batter. Stash that one away. Northern Districts, Christian Clark and Matt Fisher, both were in the list last summer. I don't know if this summer was better for them than last summer, but they're still the best. They're still 2 of the best cricketers at the younger age bracket, 25 years or younger, yet to play for New Zealand. Christian Clark he averages under 27 in one day in T20 cricket, and he was a factor in Northern Districts winning the Plunket Shield Championship. Matt Fisher has a first-class bowling average of 24. So there we go. The nice summary there. Christian Clark, Matt Fisher, they're both averaging under 27 in 2 of the 3 formats. Good stuff. Central Districts, Curtis Heafy. Fantastic batter. Talked a lot about him all summer. I've also got Will Clark, who is a very impressive all-rounder for Central Districts that folks might not know a lot about. Had a few moments in the Super Smash, scored a Plunket Shield century, got a Plunket Shield fifer. He's averaging mid-30s with the bat in first-class one-day cricket and averaging 19 with the ball in T20s. Just a very good all-rounder. I think he and Jock McKenzie are the same in my mind. I don't have one ahead of the other. Same tier. Jesse Tashkoff had a fantastic end of the summer for Wellington, and he is someone that I've had to chuck into this mix because he's got a cheeky old one-day record of 45.8 average, 103.6 strike rate. Just very good. Fantastic end of the summer. I'll actually pull that up for you to relay that because he has got a lot more game time for Wellington at the back end of the season. Last 7 games of the season, he hit 148, 84 not out, and 23 in the Ford Trophy. And he had a 55, 50, and 109 in the Plunket Shield in the last 4 games there. So watch out for Jesse Tashkoff. Canterbury, Matt Boyle, best batter in the Super Smash, also grown into the other formats. Then we got Max Chu and Luke Georgeson for Otago. Max Chu had his best season of domestic cricket. Fantastic fantastic one-day strike rate, 109 to go with his 155 in the Super Smash, while also averaging 47 in the Plunket Shield. Luke Georgeson was in and out of the Otago team, I assume by injury, because he's the captain at 25 years old. And he's just straight up one of the most impressive cricketers in New Zealand right now. Other dudes score more runs. Other guys take more wickets. But Luke Georgeson is my most impressive cricketer. There's a bit of mana. There's a bit of leadership. When he does take wickets, they look amazing. When he does score runs, it looks amazing. He is just a high caliber, high quality cricketer who is also a captain. He's probably the youngest captain in domestic cricket. Reece Murray did captain Canterbury for 1 game. But Luke Georgeson's Otago's captain, and also he was made captain by a new coach, Ash Nofke, first season in charge for Otago. He made Luke Georgeson the captain, and I think that's another tick for Luke Georgeson. Any final words for you?
How much did the list this year cross over with last year? You mentioned like Fisher and whoever else it was. Christian Clark getting double ups. Were there others? Like, was there a big turnover?
So last year's list did include Nathan Smith, Muhammad Abbas, Mitch Hayes, Zach Folks. Reece Murray was a honourable mention because, as you alluded to, wasn't playing white ball. So he's like, if you're playing one format, you're not going to be in that mix, you know. Let's go Christian Clark, Matt Fisher, both there. Curtis Heafy was there as well. Gareth Severin had a bit of a dip, so he didn't keep his spot, but he did score a few runs in the back end of the summer. Luke Georgeson was there as well. And then Dale Phillips was in the list last year, who has now aged out of the youngster bracket. So he's 26 years old. The imaginary boundaries that I've made up, he wasn't meeting that criteria and was replaced by Max Chu. But Dale Phillips was awesome this summer. So watch out for Dale Phillips as well. And that's us, I think. There we go. We did well to not waffle on too much late in the podcast, even though it's a monster. And we're just out here doing our best. We'll do our bonus podcast on Thursday, previewing Warriors footy, previewing the weekend of A-League. If any cricket pops up, any basketball pops up, we'll be chatting through that as well. Big up yourself. We appreciate your support on the platforms. Big up yourself. Love yourself. Kia kaha. Stay beautiful. Church.